right, we're going to call the November 9th meeting of the Murfreesboro City Council in order. It is 11:30, and I have got the prayer and the pledge. If you'll bow with me. Father, thank you for this day, for the opportunity that we have to gather. Lord, especially thank you for the opportunity that we had yesterday to be able to exercise our freedom to vote. Thank you for the men and women who have provided that freedom to us. Lord, for all of our veterans here in this country and in this city who've given us the ability to be able to gather today. Lord, let the decisions we make bring honor to you. Give us guidance and wisdom and compassion. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move to our first item on the workshop, and this is appointments for the Community Investment Trust. Council.
Here to work. You have, I provided to you with the agenda the applications that we received for individuals who desire to serve on the Board of Trustees and the Committee for Contributions. You recall that the trust was set up so that the management was provided to the Board of Trustees to take care of it, and then the Committee on Contributions would provide advice to the board annually on distributions to charitable organizations. We call strategic partners now that will be transferred over to the funding by the Community Investment Trust. So with those applications provided, it's just a discussion for council to talk about the individuals that they would desire to have on the Board of Trust. There's actually 8 applications. We need 7 on that Board of Trust. The Committee of Contributions, there are 5 applicants for that. You can have 5 up to 9 on the Committee for Contributions. So there's individuals can be added, and they can be added frankly at any time. So if other people want to serve on the committee, they can probably serve. The board is a bit more set. The anticipation is the council would discuss it today, and then actually on the 17th we will bring back council's desire for them to actually do the appointment. So if you have any questions about the trust or applications, then please let me know.
You're not asking for any action today?
No, it's a chance for council to review the application. It's going to talk amongst themselves. We would like to have some direction on how to put together the motion for council on the Board of Trustees and any additional people that you want on the Committee for Contributions, or how you want to handle that. So we're actually just looking for direction today.
Do you need, on the 8 that you have on the we call the big board, are you needing the council today to tell you the 7 that we would like, and then so that's prepared for an ordinance on the 17th? Or
It would be helpful, but if council wants to think about it and then make a motion just on that date, that's fine. We can be prepared for that. But it'd be helpful if we got it down to 7 in the discussions today, and then we could have everything prepared for the 17th. Same with the Committee on Contributions.
the Committee on Contributions, it seems like that we need, if the council would, we need maybe another week for each of us to try to solicit to get some more members on that board. But would everyone on the Community Investment Trust, do you want to go ahead and give 7 today? I mean, the easiest way to do that, and we've done this before, is just take a sheet of paper and write the one person that you wouldn't vote for out of the 8, and then we can pass that over to Jennifer, and she can let the council know, or let us know who the 7 that everybody agreed to.
How many total names are there on the Board of Trustees? Is it 8 names?
8.
8 applicants, right.
Let's get it down to 7.
Yes.
Okay.
Do y'all want to do that, or do you want to wait to the 17th?
I'm totally fine with
Totally fine doing
writing
that.
down a name, that way we have a direction.
All right, if everyone would, you don't have to put your name in, if everyone would write one name out of the 8 that you, is that okay?
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, instead of writing the 7 that we want, it'd be easier just to write the one that,
Need paper?
Way it's anonymous.
It's a city tablet, so
So write down the name of the person you would exclude.
you would exclude, yes.
Maybe get one more. Get yours.
Y'all got it? Is it yours?
No, they told me to pass it. You said-
Oh, okay. Pass them down to Jennifer. Oh, my God.
number 7.
I'm gonna use an entire piece of paper.
You need a piece of paper?
So Jennifer,
Like
you'll
a
just announce the
child?
7.
Oh,
On two.
One announce the 7.
like I'm passing notes. Oh, not his.
Don't pass the notes.
Yeah, Madeline's. The exercise. She needed more than you did. Austin, have you already got yours?
Yeah, I'm getting it.
Yeah. You got it?
Do what?
Madeline, get her.
Yes, and hers is in there. Mayor, since we can add to this contributions committee, could we have that resolution to approve all of the 5 that have been, is there anybody on that committee? In other words, the resolution that's coming forward for them could include all the 5 names that are volunteer. The council's totally up to you guys.
All 5 applicants are qualified. I should say all 8 of the ones that applied for the board are also qualified.
So
Make that clear.
the,
A person who's excluded from the first, could he or she be on the second?
Certainly, yeah. I think they would all be qualified for the second. The qualifications, just so you know, for the committee is 35 years old, city resident, active member of the community with experience participating in charitable and civic activities of organizations and activities traditionally supported by the city. So I think all the applicants really fit that bill.
Okay.
the 7 that will be on the trustees are Sean Applegate, Ann Davis, Stephen Flatt, Kevin Gentry, Rick LaLance, Lee Moss, and Richard Stone.
We'll prepare that, and we'll reach out to the other applicants and see if he wants to serve on the committee.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
You good now?
All right, let's move to the public safety pay plan amendment. Correct.
All right, well, after the budget year, it became apparent that we needed to take a look from a market standpoint on our public safety pay plan. Really, the issues that came up had to do with retention, recruitment and retention in the sworn positions, and so we did a market comparison study and then worked with the departments quite extensively to prepare a pay plan that made us competitive. You have, I sent to you, and it got pretty small because there's a lot of information on there, but I also printed out, and you have in front of you the current pay plan as it is now, the proposed pay plan, and then you'll have 2 pages of charts, one for fire, one for police, that compare where we are in the market now with where we would be if we adopted the proposed pay plan. And as you can see, on both police and fire, we've become much more competitive as we try and recruit individuals to serve in those positions. Part of this is driven a lot by the inflationary effects that councils in other municipalities that we compete with had to address, and that we also addressed mid-year last year. We addressed some of the positions in the public safety pay plan, essentially communications provisions early on. But we also are cognizant of the fact that everyone's going through much the same situation. And in talking with quite a bit of the council people, each of the council people, as a matter of fact, about the situation, the other thing that we'd like to recommend, along with the pay plan, the increases that go into effect with the new public safety pay plan for sworn positions, and an increase across the board that would assist employees in addressing the economic conditions we're faced with right now. So our recommendation along those lines would be 4% increase in salaries across the board, which is comparable really to the lowest percentage increase that the proposed pay plan addresses. We felt like we're market competitive in much of the other ones, so the differences between the proposed pay plans and the increases that we had to put in there really had to do with the lagging effect on those specific sworn positions in the marketplace. So, any questions about how we go about that? Cost, yes, I should say that, because there's numbers involved. I'm going to look at Aaron and let her tell you about the costs.
Yeah, so on the public safety side, it'd be around 2.4 million annually, and then a 4% for the rest of the city general employees would be between 1.4 and 1.5 million.
So that's inclusive of benefits. Yeah, so that includes benefits, and those are general numbers. Our pay plan and the actual payroll changes daily, and so those estimates are pretty solid numbers on what we would put into effect. We're also looking at, right now, what we would target is a mid-February paycheck, which means that the pay increases would be 1st of February when they would go into effect. There's quite a bit of logistics that that's involved in putting it into our systems in payroll. We'll try and advance that as much as possible, but the numbers Aaron just gave you are full year numbers. So, in essence, divide that in half, and that's what we're looking at for this budget year. And I believe later is there a budget?
The budget amendments.
Yeah, the budget amendments later. We'll present that to council, and you can see there, but essentially the number that Aaron gave you is about half of this budget year.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am. I just turned my phone on. Sorry.
No problem. What percentage are we going up on fire and police? How
Yeah.
much more percentage are we going up on their pay?
They vary.
What's the highest?
The highest would be in the recruiting positions. The fire step 1, which is now the trainee position, we dropped the trainee and recruit positions and put them into step 1, which allows them to advance to step 2 quicker and a lot smoother in our pay plan. It's 11% for our fire and 13% for the police for recruiting. And a lot of that has to do with addressing the need to recruit, particularly on the police side, new officers, and the difficulty that police forces are facing across the country in doing that.
Recruiting, are we competitive in the other areas? compared to other areas? Are we competitive with this increase?
You mean from a salary standpoint, from a benefit standpoint? From a salary standpoint, we are with some of the benchmark cities that we had brought forward and took a look at. If you look at the chart for police and you look at the chart for fire, you'll see across the bottom of the cities that we benchmarked against, and that does raise us up and make us much more competitive. We're not at the top of the market. I don't know if that's a goal that we can feasibly achieve, but we are very much into the upper end of that range.
When we're talking about competitive, this is low and this is high. So are we up here? Are we trending more down, low?
We're above the averages so if you look at the charts, you'll see, we should have brought it here, but if you look at charts in front of you, you'll see that the green line that runs straight across the chart, that's the average for all the benchmark cities. And the red diamond is Murfreesboro. On the left side is where we were, and on the right side is where we are with the proposed pay plan. So you can see that we advance in our competitiveness in each of the positions, and the same with fire. We move up the line and above the average on each.
So are we going up enough to where we won't be in this same condition or worse years from now? Are we going up enough right now?
I think we are. We will continue, I'm sure, to look at in budget time for cost of living increases and keep an eye on the market as we go. It's a hard question to answer because we don't know what the other cities are going to do or what they'll be able to do. So they'll make their choices, and to some extent they'll respond to what we do, and then we'll have to respond to what they do.
I guess I was getting at more of, the fact that are we going up enough here again so we won't be in the same position or worse 2 or 3 years from now? Will our police and fire employees still have to go out and get additional jobs just to keep the houses running, their families comfortable? Are we going up enough?
I think the answer is yes. I mean, there's a lot of individual choices that are made in that respect. It's hard to say for every individual, but I think that we are extremely competitive in the marketplace with these advances, and I think it should be able to address a lot of the situations that have in the feedback that we've received with respect to pay.
Not being disagreeable or disrespectful, but I don't see many people wanting to go out and get additional jobs on top of a full-time job and away from their family. I don't see that. I think they're getting these extra jobs. I would say a low percentage of them will be getting these extra jobs because they just want to keep working. But I think it's just to keep food on the table and everything. Are both the fire and the police chief on board with these recommendations?
We worked with the departments and also with the fire union has weighed in on it, and they agree that this is a good repositioning in the market, and as I said, we'll continue to keep a close eye on market conditions and make sure that we stay competitive.
If by chance, and this is my last question, I guess, if by chance in this fiscal year that we are in, before the next time, if we see a tremendous change, will we be willing to go back and tweak the pay salaries? The council will be willing to tweak them if we see where we way out of line on the low totem pole?
I think you run into a risk of a race to the top if we're in range now, if this new plan is in range, and we're going to continue to look at it, if we keep adjusting to other people's adjustments, you're going to have a race to the top issue where it never ends, because we give a raise, somebody else responds to our raise, and we respond to their raise again, and it's just never ending. So I guess the best thing to do is, if we're making these changes now that are competitive, keep looking at it, make another look at it again at budget time, and then continually look. Otherwise, it's just gonna be throwing money at the wind, because every single time we make a change, we're gonna make another change.
Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I was misunderstood. I'm not talking about keeping up with John and Susan, all these other cities. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about here. If we see where our employees are struggling, just to keep, if they're struggling financially, and we can see that with the rise of inflation, regardless of what Smyrna, Nashville, and everybody does, are we willing just to look at it to see if we can do anything else? I'm not talking about being competitive. I'm just talking about taking care of the households that we have in Murfreesboro.
Right, we're always willing, we made a commitment on our pay plan, both the public safety and the pay plan, to make sure that we're competitive in the market, which I know you're not asking about. But what you're asking about is be sensitive to the needs of our employees
That's
with
exactly what I'm
respect
asking
to the
about.
market. And that's why we made the recommendation for the 4% across the board, in addition to what we're doing in the pay plan.
Okay.
So when I say in addition to the total number, not in addition to what the pay plan. These numbers on the change to the pay plan are set, but
Right.
another 4% for not included in that public safety pay plan.
And if something comes about where I feel like, and we can see from the economy that we are not within line, I will be coming back. I will be coming back.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think the entire council, if we see positions are out of line, I will say this, and this is not towards public safety or all of our employees. I had 2 meetings yesterday with truck drivers and excavators where projects are now, three projects for 2023 were put on hold. I'm all for us taking care of our public safety, because that is I think a segmented position that is going to be tougher and tougher, not only to pay and hire, but I don't want to be negative. 2023, I think economy-wise, unless inflationary numbers get down and the interest rate gets down, you are going to start seeing people in the overall economy that are not government employees who are going to be losing their jobs. Facebook announced 11,000 laid off today. So we also have to start looking at what's happening, in my opinion, in the overall economy. And just because we're a governmental organization, we are not in a bubble that the private sector is not going to be hurting over these next couple of months if inflationary numbers don't get down.
Yeah, because that affects our citizenry. If we keep raising everything up and then we got to raise taxes to combat that affects the people that are paying the taxes.
Yeah, and I think we really need to be looking, Aaron, and I know you're doing this with your dashboard numbers, but it is really going to be interesting to see what hotel motel tax, what sales tax, and what our tourism dollars are going to be moving forward. We've talked about it for a couple of years, but I think it's really starting to hit. Now the housing market has come to a screeching halt. So
I think it's a step in the right direction. I'll add what Ms. Harris is saying. I think we owe it to our police, to our fire, to all our city employees that we are aggressively looking each year at how we stand up. Because if we aren't, then that gap is created, and then it gets worse and worse. So I think we owe it to ourselves, and I would encourage us that we do look at that each and every year, because it is a step in the right direction. I think it's encouraging that police and fire and others, are in support of it. One question I have is around the emergency communications personnel. Are they part of this from a percentage standpoint, or are they in the general employees? Because I would encourage that their percentage be just as much. I consider them a critical piece of that public safety team.
Yeah, they are a critical piece of the public safety team, and they do serve both police and fire. We did address them from a market standpoint earlier, and we made some adjustments to how they were compensated earlier this year. So when we went out to the market study this time, we looked at the sworn positions and didn't look at the comp positions because we'd already done that just a few months before. But they would be included in the adjustments that we were talking about on the across the board. They would be picked up in that increase. They would be receiving an increase.
4%.
The 4%.
4%.
Yeah, and the positions varied as far as the increases across the different positions. I mean, they're not, the average increase is about 5% across the board, but based on the adjustments we had to make and to make the pay plan work, there are variances in the different positions where there are different increases that go across. But generally speaking, the average worked out to about 5.
So you're saying 4%, you're saying that the public safety pay plan study that you're recommending is the first. 4% across the board for city employees, including communications.
Including the comp people.
Okay, and what's that total number?
$1,450,000.
Right, well, what's the total for everything?
I'm sorry. 3.8, 3.9.
3.9.
Okay. And that includes benefits. Well, have we figured the change is there any change in benefits? Or is it just salary?
But Social Security and Medicare and retirement are all a percentage
that.
of payroll, and so that's where that's factored in.
Okay.
That is factored in.
Yes.
Can we,
It's changed some,
yeah.
so it's hard to calculate.
based on what Madeline and Austin were saying, can it just be something that instead of us having to ask at every budget, instead of having to ask at every budget year about where we're comparing to everyone else, is that something that employee services can just start after the budget? Everybody does their budgets in June and July. Is it something that you can just do a survey where we get something and at least see where we stand, this time every year, that we can compare to what, because our communications people in January were on the top end, or they had gotten a significant increase, but then the county gave 20%, and then all of a sudden they came back to the market. So if we could just do this after we pass budget, that would give us a good idea mid-year every year where we stand.
We can look, it takes a lot of time and effort. I mean, we'd have to add staff if we did every single position every year, but generally speaking, yeah, we do watch as part of when the budgets come out, all the communities start to watch what's going on in the pay plan. So we're cognizant of that and try and the city managers will have discussions early on what's going to go on. We don't know for sure until the budget gets passed, but we know kind of heads up. So there's a lot of discussions that go on to try and keep up with that. But every once in a while, we will have to focus because we'll see an issue with retention or with recruitment in a position, and we'll have to take a deeper dive into what's going on out in the market. Because we compete with other cities, but in some positions we compete with the open market too. So there's a lot of variations to that. We do that now. We can continue to do that as we prepare budgets going forward.
Can we
It'd be a
look
great thing for TML to put out salary tables and do a good job for them to do, so all the cities could see where we're at, but they don't do that.
Can we look at more than just pay, like benefits, whether it's vacation time, something like that? Because it maybe some of these other municipalities may not be as competitive on the payroll side, but maybe more competitive on ancillary benefits side. I think we all up here want not just public safety, but everybody to be competitive, and we want our people and we honor our people. But it'd be good to look at not just pay, but all those other ancillary benefits also, because I'm not saying this is a true fact. I'm just saying, let's say Mount Juliet has a week's extra vacation. Well, they may pay a little bit shy, but have an extra week's vacation. That may make a difference.
Yeah, we try to do that, and some of it is ancillary information that we get, and we try and verify that going on. And that's part of the reason why it's so much effort, because it's not too hard to get a salary for a position if you can match it to a salary and match those up. But then when you start adding benefits to it, it really takes quite a bit of time and quite a bit of effort to do a fair market comparison across the board. But, we try and stay on top of those as well.
I just want to give full disclosure that I'm going to ask the same question I asked at the last budget hearing, whether it be to the chief of, the fire chief or the police chief, that if there's an issue with retention, recruitment, or pay, and we ask that question, hey, are we having an issue right now? Then the only way that we can fix it is if someone tells us, yes, we're having an issue. So I'm going to ask that question next year. And I don't think we want to put our staff in a position where every staff member knows that they're coming up to us and we're going to ask them that question. But specifically in those two departments, if we're having an issue with recruitment, retention, and people leaving, then the only way that we know that is if that's relayed to the city manager and relayed back to us. So I think it's important every year that, we don't have to dig into numbers over the last 4 years and find out that, the majority of people that we're hiring are not from other departments. They're from New York and California, which tells me immediately people are not wanting to leave smaller departments and come to Murfreesboro.
Right.
So those are the things that we don't know until we know. The last thing I wanted to bring up, I think the council already knows, I had mentioned this at a meeting. How many retirees do we have total on? I want to ask that, I don't think the number's very big, but we legally, without going through a lot of different hoops, we cannot change our retirement program and the percentage that everyone's getting. So we've had 2 really good years of putting money into the general fund. So I want to recommend, I would like to see a $500 one-time payment to any person who's retired and label that as a cost of living adjustment. I know it's not a huge amount, but at least it's something. And if we see that the economy stays strong, then maybe that's something we look in our budget as we see if inflation doesn't come down. The number's like 330 or 331.
I believe you're right. It was
330, 331.
right.
Where are these funds coming from, or is this a general fund?
It would have to come from, it'd have to come from general fund and unforeseen or a budget amendment.
So what's fund balance now? I mean, I'm talking about everything, the 3.8 and all of this money that we're spending. Where is it coming from?
Well, the budget amendment does include an amendment to our sales tax and our property taxes. Sales tax came in higher at the end of FY22, which would increase our overall projection for this year. And then we also saw higher revenues than budgeted. We budgeted a 6% increase over FY22, and we've been running 8 to 12%. And so the budget amendment does include those additional revenues. Now that's, again, assuming we don't have a dip in sales tax for the rest of the year. So far, our lowest increase has been above 6% over last year's projections. And we also had a little bit higher property tax and payment in lieu of taxes from our 22 tax roll that's reflected. And then the budget for this year included about 1.7 or 1.8 million for one-time use items that would generally come out of fund balance rather than operating. So as far as operating revenues go, again, barring a major drop in sales tax, I think that we're supported with our general fund revenues to support the increases.
I'm just concerned that we don't spend fund balance on something that's a continuing when we've put into additional expense, that's coming out of general fund.
That does not present right now as using fund balance. Now, if we do have a major economic downturn, that's something that we'll certainly be communicating with y'all to be prepared for as we're going into the second half of this year and also into next year's budget process. But we do have the fund balance to insulate us for now if we did have a short-term drop too. So, but again, like I said, right now with the budget amendment presented today, I believe that those revenues will support your decisions today on the payroll side.
Bill, and in looking at where we've been over the last 4 years specifically, the finance staff has done a really good job on, I think it was 21 million last year that
Not right, I don't know the
That
number
was
off the top of my head, but that's.
above what we had budgeted, and then it was 16 million the year before. And I want to say it was 8 million the year before that. So since 2018, there's been about 45 million added to fund balance. And that sounds like a lot, because we got away from deficit budgeting. You know, that was a big deal that Rick really did not want us budgeting in the general fund, and so we quit doing that. But I would also argue on the other side that we've done that so when the economy does take a dip, that we've got that set aside, that we were planning for that.
Well, there's a little caveat in this, is when we're not able to hire public safety people, then your expenses go down. And so you create an additional revenue at the end of the year because you haven't had those people. Now you're raising salaries, and you're going to hopefully fill all those positions, or many of those positions that are vacant now. And then you've got that continuing expense, and just make sure that our revenues are able to pay for these continuing expenses, because I hope we can fill every one of these positions in our fire and police that we haven't been able to fill or we've lost.
So Jamie Austin, what Bill's talking about is a significant portion of our payroll budget. We have a thing called slippage, and that's where we budget to hire these positions and then we don't get them hired. And so that's a pretty significant number every year, isn't it, Aaron?
Yes, I mean, usually I would say between 5 and 8% of payroll, we have savings from vacancies. We do budget a small allowance for vacancies in police's budget each year, but generally they beat that at least once or twice over. So it's not unusual for a large portion, or not a large portion, but 5 to 8 million of our increase to fund balance be because of our vacancies. But we do budget for that each year. I mean, we budget that full expense, less maybe $1 million, $1.5 million on police vacancies. But so our budget is still reflecting revenues and expenses, so that assuming that we don't have that many vacancies through the year, if that makes sense.
Hopefully that gap too will diminish with us giving this pay increase, because, you know, we are told that people, I'm just using fire for example, they are leaving for reasons other than pay, going other places. But then, and I would like to see, you know, quarterly or whatever, I'd like to see why the people are leaving, because we are told they're not leaving for pay, and then you hear they are leaving. But that's something else. But I think that gap will diminish now with hopefully this increase that we are given. And as far as the retirees, I'm a retiree myself, and I'm going to draw the same check until I die. And, you know, things are going up in stores and everything. So I'm for giving that $500. It's not much, I understand that, but hey, if my retired people would give me $500, I'd be grateful for it, because here again, no matter what prices are out here, I'm going to draw the same check for the rest of my life.
And that would be
I'm
about-
70 and I'm not going to get another job. I mean, you know, because I want to enjoy life. You know, I don't want to get another job.
And with 330 retirees, that's about $180,000 impact for this budget.
Any questions?
Would like to make a motion that the emergency, the 911 folks, that we amend this to where they're getting a 5%. Because what I'm reading here is it's a 5%, and I consider them just as critical and part of that overall public safety, whether they're calling police or calling fire. I've sat up there. It's a very stressful position. They deal with a lot, and it all starts right there. I would make a motion that we amend it to include them to at least at 5%.
Have a motion?
I second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All right, Ms. Brown, please call the roll. I'm sorry?
What's that look like, Aaron?
Yeah, can we talk, I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I am looking at it right now, so.
Should be a small number.
Should be a small number.
You don't have an answer, Aaron?
Really close.
I understand, these are a lot of expenses, but I understand too that, probably get shot now. I understand too, but when we giving a lot of money to soccer, to tennis, we find the money for those things. And I just happened to, that popped up in my mind, I'm sure we find money for everything else, but that's just my 1.5 cents.
So because they're already included in that 4% number I gave, it would, and I will double check this before second reading and do a deeper dive, but I think it would be somewhere under 30,000 of an additional increase.
But the motion is 5%, not 4, not 5% on top of 4.
Right,
Does that
so,
make sense?
so far, we're actually, this is just the workshop item. The budget amendment is a separate item that y'all can
Right.
consider. And so that would probably be the appropriate time to make the motion for, 4% for the rest of the employees, 5% for the dispatch staff, and then also the public safety, and the other items on the budget amendment.
I'm going to
4% all around the
go ahead and make sure
Easier.
we'll go through with the motion that we have on the floor, and then I'm going to write all of this down on what we're approving or what we're recommending. So for your budget amendment, there will be a motion with these items. So it's an additional 1% basically on top of the 4 for $30,000.
Okay. So the motion includes putting them in the 911 emergency services category and a 5%. Is it 4?
But and I got confused on this, that the emergency communications is already part of the public safety salary schedule.
It is.
Okay.
They were just not included in this public safety pay plan study because they got a raise in January. So they're already part of the public safety step plan.
So what raise did they get in January? What percent?
I don't remember what the total.
Why would we not just match them, whatever raise they got in January, match it to equal everybody else's raises? Is that 3%, 2%, and goes, and that gives them a 4% raise like everybody else?
There were other, it was, I don't remember the exact percentage, but we did make other adjustments in there. We changed their hours, and most of them are hourly employees, so it was a 6% change, 6 2/3% change
Just
on their available hours for scheduling purposes. Now, it depends on how many hours they work, but that was the budget impact with 6.5%, just moving those to 40 hours a week, right, Chief? Yeah. And then I think we looked at their pay, and we adjusted some of the pay plan in there. Chief, do you remember more? We talked about it over several months, so.
Right, we had adjusted the coordinator positions in that particular range, so the big change was converting to the 40 hours.
Yeah. So the 40 hours was 6.5, or 6 2/3% is what happens when you convert those hours over. But yeah, I mean, the 4%, the 5% for the compositions, the additional increase would be 30,000. The difference between 4 and 5, right, Aaron? That was the 30,000. So, yeah.
Or less, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to sit here and do that kind of calculations on the fly, but around $30,000 to move the compositions to 5, everybody else to 4, and then the public safety pay plan is to what you have in front of you as far as those positions. And then wherever you are in the step is what your new salary would be relative to what your old salary was.
Recommendation was originally for, we really should have separated it out. The recommendation was originally for communications to get 4%. Austin has made a motion, and there's a second to add an additional 1% to take them to 5, not 9, not 4 plus 5. It will
Right.
be
That's better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you have it in 4 segments, we're going to have the public safety pay plan will be included in this, a 5% raise for communication that's already in the public safety salary schedule, then 4% for all city employees that are not public safety or communication people, and then
Does that,
500
on that
Sir?
4%, does that include part-time people too?
would not include part-time.
Just making sure we get that.
Part-time people are not getting a raise.
Well, we need to make that clearer.
They need a raise. No, they need a raise. Not full-time, part-time, but part-time, I mean, not part-time, like, lifeguards. But
Yeah.
part-time people, they need a raise.
So how many, I think that number's like 30, is that right, Aaron? There's like full-time.
I don't know that off the
So
top of my
Madeline,
head. I'm sorry.
that will need, if we want to do that, that will need to come back to us outside of this.
Okay.
Because that gets a little more complicated when you start looking at,
There's lots of different.
I agree, we'll bring it back, but we're looking at human beings here.
so,
That has to come back.
We'll have to identify the position. I know the positions you're talking about, people that are regularly employed in a part-time position as opposed to seasonal or, we had
Seasonal, right.
umpires and
Right. Lifeguards
referees
and stuff like that, yeah.
and those kind of things. So we have to really segment those out.
Yeah. That's good, we just don't need to leave them out.
so our 5 would be public safety pay plan, 4% to city employees, 5% to communication, and then $500 to our retirees. So we have a motion and a second on the floor for changing the communication staff from 4% to 5%. Please call the roll, Ms. Brown.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris? Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. All right, do we have any other discussion on,
All I'll say is just moving forward, I would hope that we address this routinely.
I agree.
So that we do not get into this situation again.
I agree.
And where'd the chief go?
He just walked out.
To the restroom or someplace. Well, I'll just throw it out, this is another discussion for another day, but we talked about recruiting and retention. So I would be curious from the chief's perspective, like are other departments offering bonuses, that are sign-on bonuses. So that affects us to recruit if we're not offering that. And I don't know if we are or not.
And we are actually looking at that. Part of the benefit of the bonuses is when you start, because we're 2 weeks behind, you go 30 days without a paycheck. And so even for people transitioning from another job, it's good to have something to help you get through that. So we're looking at that along with an agreement for payback. You have to stay a certain amount of time before you pay back. Experience credit is another thing that we've looked at for recruitment purposes. The other thing that vacation time, offering vacation time accrual is you particularly experienced people that are coming in, if you're leaving 2 or 3 weeks of vacation, you're moving your family here, going into, having 2 or 3 weeks vacation is pretty important. And so we're looking at those. So there's a lot of those recruiting tools that were coming in. Now, they don't generally, from a budgeting standpoint, add up to enough to make a giant change to the pay plan. We can do those administratively. Why are we paying? Be safe, guys. But yeah, So we're looking at recruiting. Part of the, and the chief did walk out, maybe you knew you were asking, but part of the problem we have with recruiting police is a national problem. It's not a local problem. It's an issue that we were faced with. Chief is dedicated, I don't know if fire is dedicated, but chief is dedicated someone just as a recruiting officer, and I think that's made a difference as well. So we're looking at a lot of different things to help our recruitment.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just go back to the military, and we had all those same tools, but if one branch of the service was offering a bonus and another one wasn't, Joe Smith went to that other branch.
All those recruiting officers are together. They should spread them out. So
No,
just go from door to door and get the best offer.
I think what you're hearing from everyone and what you've heard over the last many months, and I'll echo what you said in your individual meetings, I don't want to be focused on midpoint. We want our employees to be paid above midpoint. And we can't compete. There's some municipalities we just can't compete with, and that's just part of reality. But you're hearing from everyone, it's nice to see these numbers at budget, but it would be nice to have this spreadsheet updated this time every year, just to compare us to, hey, this is what Smyrna did, this is what Nashville did, this is what Laverne did. And that way, at least gives us an idea. And if your chiefs come and there's incentive bonuses to hire people, or there's retention bonuses, I think we're up for looking at all that. So.
And also, I know we have a lot of issues we have to handle, and sometimes things fall through the crack. I'd like to ask, when can we expect the part-time salaries to come back up?
We did give a raise to part-time employees with this budget this year, but we can look at the year-round, full-time, part-time employees and try to have that number back to y'all before second reading.
Oh, I thought it was said that we did not give.
We did give an increase to them effective July 1.
Okay, if we've given an increase, that's fine. I thought.
Yeah. They're just
I
not
said we
in,
didn't.
they're not in this
Right, okay.
recommendation, but they did get an increase in July.
I'm okay with that, as long as they got a raise.
They did.
I'm fine with that.
All right. Let's move through any questions on the September dashboard? We'll move to action items. You've got Planning Commission recommendations to schedule public hearings. Mr. Conley?
So to Mayor and Council, we have 3 public hearings scheduled that were recommended by the Planning Commission. We are recommending a date of December 8th for these 3 public hearings. I can answer any questions.
Okay.
December the 8th.
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Skels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Bromley, is that shade of orange, is that UT shade of orange? That doesn't look Auburn colored.
Yeah, it's debatable.
Basketball season's coming, right?
That's true. Thank you, Mr. Maxwell.
All right. Now we need to do the budget amendment.
Yeah, so I pretty much covered everything I was going to talk about already. It's got the revenue increases that we discussed for property and sales tax. The budget amendment presented only has the public safety pay plan adjustment, so any other changes should be, well, Adam, I guess they don't have to approve it twice since it's not been approved once. They can just amend
So
what I presented, right? And then vote on it once.
Yeah, they could vote on the amendment on second reading.
Well, they can,
Yes.
if the motion is to include the 4% for everyone else and the 5%.
They could do that now.
Yeah.
If they wanted to make a motion to amend this ordinance to include the 4% for, well, the 5% for,
So the motion, so we need to have an amendment to this budget to this budget amendment that we need to include, we need to add 4% for all city employees that are not public safety. We need to add 5% to communication. And then we need to add $500 for all retirees.
And this is not those that are running out benefits,
just-
right? Just the ones who are actively retired.
Active retirees. And then the budget amendment already has the public safety pay plan in there. So we really just need to have 3 additional items to the budget amendment. So if you agree, a so moved would be great.
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
Second, okay.
This is on which item here?
So this is under action item number 5, fiscal year 23 budget amendment, and this is first reading, so this will have to
Okay.
come back to us again on second reading.
And this is just the amendment you'll come back and vote on?
Yeah, this is just adding, this is just the amendment.
Okay, this is not the city schools? Okay.
Ms. Brown, please call the roll for the amendment.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris? Mr. Maxwell? Vice Mayor Shacklet? Mr. Wade? Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
I will now need to consider fiscal year 23 budget amendment from administration, first reading as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris? Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet? Mr. Wade? Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
We'll move to item 6, and this is Resolution 22R25, a budget amendment number 3 from City Schools. Director Duke.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This afternoon, I'm presenting a resolution for your approval that recognizes a budget amendment which was approved by the school board on October 25th. The city of Murfreesboro graciously offered and awarded $500,000 to the city school system as a subrecipient through the American Rescue Plan Act for our Tennessee All-Core Tutoring Program. The board, the MCS board, approved the amendment to budget this one-time appropriation from the city that will fund the salaries of 11 full-time educational assistants who will spend their time working with students in small group sessions. The board also approved a resolution acknowledging that this one-time appropriation would not increase or otherwise affect the city's maintenance of effort obligation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
No questions?
I have a question.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. 500,000, 11 EAs, 2 years, that comes out to about 45,000 per EA. That can't be right.
So that includes the benefits as well. If you look at the budget page that is listed there, that includes 11 EAs, 37 hours a week for 40 weeks, including their benefits as well, which is a 27% of their total salary cost.
Okay.
And I think we also included money for year 2 for Ms. Williams, a cost of living adjustment that we would anticipate as well. They are on the same salary scale that all of our educational assistants are on, so they are not being paid a different rate than any other educational assistant we have.
Okay. That's what was throwing me, because I was thinking of just straight up $15, $16 an hour, whatever their rate is.
Good question. Any other questions?
No.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet? Mr. Wade? Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Any board and commission appointments? Council members, if you would please remember by our next meeting, it would be great if we have some more recommendations for the board.
Well, if you
Advisory.
could, I'll send out applications again. If you get individuals to fill out the applications and submit them back, that'd be helpful as well.
All right, any licensing?
We have a regular permit and a special event beer permit. The regular is an ownership and name change for a restaurant located at 2830 Middle Tennessee Boulevard. And the special event is for Junior League of Murfreesboro on December 3rd. Both applicants have met requirements for permits.
Second.
First and second, please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris? Mr. Maxwell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet. Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
All right, any statements?
No, sir.
Any other business from staff?
Now, we'll meet on the 17th. As I mentioned before, the only other thing I'll say is that Brenda Davis, you know, the admin in our office, lost her husband just recently, and right after this meeting is a visitation at Woodman, if you chance to stop by there, and then I think at 2 o'clock after that is the actual service, but the visitation's going on now, I think.
Yes.
I want to let the council know, I think I sent it out in the email, just so y'all know, I will have to leave early on the 17th from the meeting. Just to prepare Bill.
Do our best.
Any other business from council?
Happy Veterans Day this Friday.
That's right.
I'll be the master of ceremonies on the square, so I'll be the MC.
Okay.
So,
Hey, and I know everyone, residents are just dying watching city council meetings, but also know that there won't be any trash pickup on Friday. So if you have Friday pickup, put your trash out Thursday. All right, we'll stand adjourned. Thanks for your hard work, everyone.